Hi everyone, welcome to today's Microsoft Remote Learning webinar, overview of remote learning in Microsoft Teams. I'm Matthew Henderson. With me today I've got Cindy Dennison and Trudy Hughes. We are technology adoption specialists with ICT services in the Department for Education. Bit of housekeeping, we're recording all of this week's sessions for those who can't tune in live, and they'll be available through EDIT portal. Just search for remote learning. Please send your questions through in the Q&A of the live event and we'll do our best to answer them as we go. We'll be able to answer all except the anonymous questions afterwards if we don't get through them live. Okay, now it's over to Troy Waller, our Learning Delivery Specialist and Accessibility Lead at Microsoft Education Australia. He's a valuable resource, he's a former teacher, we're very lucky to have him presenting for us this week.
G'day guys, can I just check that you can hear me? Okay, so welcome to this webinar, Remote Learning with Microsoft Teams. As you were just told, my name is Troy Waller. I'm a Microsoft Learning Delivery Specialist. My role is to go around schools basically in the southern states, so Victoria, South Australia and Tasmania, working very closely with the South Australian Department of Education. I go around and help schools understand what they can do with the Microsoft platform and all the cool things that they can do both in the classroom and also to improve their workflow outside of school. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take you through some of the great things that you can do with Teams. We're going to certainly have a bit of a Q&A happening in real time, and also, I'll stop from time to time and we'll talk a little bit about, some of the questions that have come up. So looking at our agenda for today, I'm going to do a little bit about Microsoft 365, just the basics of that, and then we'll dive into Teams. I'm going to give you a bit of an overview of Teams. Show you some of the basic features, etc. Then we're going to look at setting up your class team. We're going to look at the best approach for effective online meetings, and then resources to help you get started. Definitely there's a whole heap of resources that have been made available to you directly from the department, but also if you want to get into some of our stuff which we've published, and this is more generic, right, for the whole country, not just specifically to South Australia, but you can visit that web link there, aka.ms/Microsoft Remote Learning. So that's aka.ms/Microsoft Remote Learning. So starting with our Office 365 start page, which is found by jumping into www.office.com, www.office.com. And then when we think about signing in, you will just use your regular LearnLink ID. So that's your ID at schools.sa.edu.au, and then you just use your regular LearnLink password. So when you go to office.com for the first time, you will be asked for your email address. You go ahead, you punch that in, and then after that it'll take you to a LearnLink page, which you'll be used to seeing, and it'll just make sure that you sign in, and then you'll end up on that page. And that page again looks something like that there. Okay, so it'll be a little bit different because it'll be unique to you and unique to your context, but basically that's what it looks like. So one more time, to sign in you go with your ID, and obviously that's going to be your information there at schools.sa.edu.au, and then just use your regular LearnLink password. So let's jump into this. Let's start talking about Teams. So in terms of remote learning, you've seen the whole world, basically, the whole world of education, at least, looking at this idea of remote learning. And we at Microsoft have been building this for a really long time. Not that we knew what was coming, of course, but I sort of joke with people that I feel like Noah in the rain now, because trying to get people to understand the value of education technology was sometimes a bit of a challenge, but now we've just got everybody's attention. But luckily we have developed some really good stuff, and luckily for you, the department has made all this available to you. So when we look here at the top of this slide, we see, for course materials and the management of that course materials, well, definitely Teams is a big part of that, but also what we've got around OneNote and also around SharePoint. In terms of your video content, Well, your video content can definitely be played in Microsoft Teams and used through Microsoft Teams, but it's housed in Microsoft Stream, which is connected to Teams anyway. And then if we jump over here, we see with our lesson streaming and our recordings, well, that's all happening with Teams and its relationship with Microsoft Stream as well. In terms of assessments and assignments, assessments, we've got some great tools in Microsoft Forms, which will do self-marking quizzes and multiple choice and true and false and those kinds of questions. But then inside Teams, we've also got some really good assignment features, as well as in OneNote as well. So right across Office 365, but really highlighting OneNote, Teams and Forms as well. Inclusive learning, there's some really good features inside Teams, a little bit beyond what we're going to do today, but there's some really good features inside there. We've got immersive reader and integration with Office Lens inside Teams is really powerful. Remembering that we are inside the Office 365 ecosystem, or the Microsoft 365 ecosystem. So the calendars, email through Outlook, that integration with Teams is really cool as well. In terms of analytics, well, we've got some really good stuff. So we've got, for those of you that are, really high-end users, we've got Power BI, but there are some basic analytics features in Microsoft Teams, and we'll have a look at that today as we move along. So in essence, Microsoft Teams is a hub for all of Office 365. And so this rich service allows all aspects of the teaching and learning experience to be met using the full suite provided by Microsoft, bringing everything together into a shared workspace where students and teachers can chat, call, share files, work with learning apps, and yes, hold effective lessons remotely. So Teams delivers a unique end-to-end lesson experience that brings back the human element of face-to-face teaching. We don't have to lose that face-to-face, the importance of face-to-face connections with our students by working remotely when we use Teams. So it helps students to stay focused both before, during, and even after our online lessons. All right, so it's a hub. And everything is connected. It's the digital hub tailored for both collaborative work and collaborative learning. And it lets us bring our conversations, our meetings, our content, our apps and our assignments all together in a single place. So the first thing that Teams does is it allows us to have voice calls and video calls, and that's what we use for our online meetings and our online lessons. It has the ability to have chat, and we'll hear from some folks in the department in terms of what's available for chat for students and for teachers, but we'll hear a little bit about that later on. And then there's the teams themselves, right, where everything sits inside this thing that we call Teams. The other thing, as I said a moment ago, is we bring our whole Office 365 experience inside of Teams. So you've got, Word and PowerPoint, Excel and Outlook and all those things that you know and love, and they can be accessed and facilitated inside. But there's probably some apps that you don't know about that live inside there as well. The other thing that we've got, though, is we've got third-party apps inside of Teams. So we've got things like Wakelet, everybody's favorite YouTube, Kahoot, Wikipedia. They have dedicated apps inside Teams. So we've got our Office 365 Microsoft apps, but we've also got other apps as well. So the idea is everything's connected and everything is coming on the inside of Teams. And then in terms of assignments, well, as I said before, we've got the assignment features inside Teams, which we'll explore a little bit more, but its integration with OneNote and things like Flipgrid is really quite cool. So Microsoft Teams makes creating and managing collaborative classrooms really quite easy. And the first thing we talk about is staying organized. So there's a built-in OneNote class notebook which helps you organize content, and it's built into every team every class team to allow teachers to organize their interactive lessons, deliver personalized learning right inside of Teams. We want to empower student voice, right? So it's not a matter of sort of one-way communication, but it's a two-way communication, one to many and many to many. So we've got these rich voice conversations, video conversations and content as well. And that rich, persistent conversation experience in Teams makes learning more visible to the entire class, not just to the teacher, with text, video and voice using integrations like Microsoft Stream. So students are able to collaborate and connect with each other. It's not just the teacher speaking directly to the students. And then we want to make sure that we can easily create and share content with the embedded Office 365 apps and files, which we talked about before. So you've got things like the class avatars, the emojis and the stickers, and these allow teachers to harness the natural behaviours of a classroom and, you know, make it a fun and fluid learning experience. And then the apps integrate into the classroom experience, so teachers can and students can quickly access the Office 365 apps they already use, like Word, PowerPoint, Excel, etc. So the thing about Teams is free for schools. There are you know, free services that any school can access, but the department has actually purchased a subscription to Office 365 for every teacher and every student in the state, which is quite exciting. So while we say that it's free, which it is, there is a paid subscription which the department has taken for you. So when we look at Teams, we see that Teams can play really well in the desktop app. So whether you're using a Windows machine, a Linux machine, or an Apple machine, and a Mac OS machine, you're still going to have this dedicated client, which is great. But we also play really well across the tablet and phone space. So there are dedicated Android and iPhone tablet and phone apps which you can access, and you can find that, you know, being able to be mobile. Although, you know, as we're all spending more and more time in home, that's not such a big plus for us at the moment. But, you know, at the end of this, we'll find that we can actually use these devices. But the cool thing about this is for students that don't necessarily have access to a desktop, or maybe they're from a family where they're having to share amongst numerous kids, it's really good that they can actually jump onto smaller devices and still access the learning, as can the teachers. And then if you've got a browser, whether you've got whether you use Edge, Chrome, or Safari, you've also got the ability to access this through the browser as well. But remembering, the best experience you're going to get is going to be on a Windows device, a Windows 10 device, because we are Microsoft. But that's not to say that you're not going to get a good experience across these other platforms as well. You can download the Teams app. I'm going to show you as well how to access this through the browser, but you can download the Teams app by going to aka.ms/get Teams. So let's have a look at the way that Microsoft Teams is going to help us to support remote learning through our meetings. So it supports your lessons by bringing everything the class needs for meeting in one place. It delivers a unique end-to-end experience that brings, as I said before, the human element of face-to-face interaction, while helping students stay focused before, during, and after the lesson. So before the lesson, we want to, and this is what we're going to explore today, we're going to learn how to create the class team. We're going to learn how to schedule your online class or lecture. And then we're going to also learn how you need to prepare your own device. So before the lesson, we need to make sure that the lesson is going to be productive, so students can prepare ahead of time as well by reviewing previous content, engagements, and collaborating on documents. During the lesson, we want to make sure that we're presenting the content well to students, and we'll have a look at how we can do that today. We're going to show you how to record your lesson for later viewing, and then it'll also help you to manage the conversations and the questions. So during the lesson, once it begins, teachers can use a variety of features that are going to help focus attention, drive engagement, foster inclusion, such as, you know, the high fidelity audio and video, live captions, translations, co-authoring apps, digital whiteboard, distraction-free background, etc. And, you know, we're not going to have time to explore all these today, but I want to let you know that they're all there, and we're going to show you how to find out more about those. And then after our online lesson, after our online meeting of using video, etc., we need to make sure that kids know how to access the lesson recordings, that our students know where to go to get that if they've missed the lesson, but also if they perhaps need to use it for review. The teacher can review the responses to the conversations and then continue to chat and collaborate on documents and learning materials. So after the lesson, everything, including the recording, the digital whiteboard, the files, etc., they're all saved in a persistent conversation that helps the class continue the discussion, and nothing needs to get lost in the cracks. So before, during, and after, those are the three stages that we're going to go through as we explore Teams. Now, what I might do now, though, is I might actually open up the Q&A and just ask some of our department staff if they're to come off mute, and maybe has there been any questions so far?
Hi, Troy. Yes, there's been a few, some of which I think you'll cover off on very shortly. One in particular, can I turn video feed off, like the microphones off during a student video conference? Yeah, okay, so that's definitely something that we're going to address as we work through, but the answer to that is definite yes. Any others? A few other things, again, may be covered in later sessions. How can a teacher take attendance of their students without having to make a new form or post each day? Yep. Okay. So again, we'll cover that as we sort of jump in. But I will let you know that at the moment there is no dedicated attendance feature, but we at Microsoft are working on that, because as you could imagine, as teachers have started jumping on this, there's been a whole list of asks and demands that teachers want to see this get a little bit better. So I will show you how to see who's in your lesson at any one time, and you can do a screen grab and things, but also know that there is an attendance app that's actually being worked on at the moment. All right, so let's keep going. Having a look here at before we start the lesson, we need to create a class team. We need to schedule our online class or lecture, and we also need to look at how we would prepare our device. So jumping into this slide here, I want to help you understand what you need to do to create your class. What I will probably do is I'm going to take you through this slide, and then I'm going to jump into a bit of a demo, and so that you guys can actually see, you know, I won't say hands-on, my hands-on, your eyes on. So Microsoft Teams can support up to 5,000 members of a team. So in other words, when you create a class team, as you can see here, when you create a class team, you can have 5,000 people in that team. But there's a few things to note before we get too excited about having 5,000 kids in our team. Students cannot leave the team when we create it. It is invite only, and it is hidden from others, so no one can accidentally stumble on your team and join your team. It's certainly locked down inside the department space, but even inside the department space, we can lock it down and make it only available to those we want it to. And then we've also got a thing called a class materials folder, which is read only. So students can only access that to copy and read, but a teacher obviously has ongoing access. Now, this is what I wanted to talk about before. Whilst we can have 5,000 members in a team, if we're going to use the assignment feature, if we're going to use the class notebook, we can only have a maximum of 200 students per class team. All right. Now, for most of you, your classes are going to be somewhere between 15 and 35 students, so that's not going to be an issue for you at all. But I do want to make you aware that whilst you can have 5,000, really the maximum is in terms of usage is about 200, but they really are designed to be used for individual classes. You could certainly have a cohort of maybe of year 7s or grade 3s or whatever you've got in your school, but really it's designed best to work with individual classes. All right, so when we add students to the class, we can create a team to bring your students together into a virtual space by using an invite link. So we could send a link out to students via email. We could also send them a join code, and I'll show you all about that in a moment and where the student would put that. And we can also add a distribution group. Now, in the long term, there are ways to have your teams automated. Through through your IT department actually helping you set that up. But at the moment today, we're just going to really focus on using the join codes and adding students individually. So having a look here at our Teams slide, this is just giving you a sense of what's possible. Okay, so you can do things like you can add apps. You can find your own personal apps, you can view and organize your teams, you can navigate through Microsoft Teams and look at your notifications. If you're on a social media platform, you'll be used to the notifications tab that exists in there as well. We can chat. You've got a command box to be able to type in commands to find things and navigate around through Teams much easier.
You've got your account for setting your profile and your profile settings as well, notifications and things. You can join a creator team, which we'll have a look in a minute, manage your team, view your team, etc. So what I'm going to do now is I'm actually going to take you into a live demo. Excuse me. I'm going to take you into a live demo. So here I am at Office 365. So again, it was www.office.com and we used our Learn link to jump in. Now, you can see here, and I just want to give you a little bit of a tour quickly, that here's some of my basic apps, ones that I probably use often. But if I click on all apps over here, I'll get to see everything that's available to me. And I can also do that from the app launcher up here. Those of you that use Google Chrome will probably find your Google Chrome app launcher sitting up here. Your Microsoft One will sit down here whenever you're in Office 365 or an Office 365 page. All right. So in this case, what we would do is we would jump into Teams. Okay. So from office.com, we jump into Teams. In this case, I've already opened it over here. And here you can see all the teams that I am a member of. Right, so I'm a member of, some of them are staff teams, some of them are class teams. There's all different kinds of teams that you can be a member of. Now, when you log into this, you may see there's nothing here at all because you're not a member of any teams yet. So what you'll want to do is join or create a team. So I'm just going to click on that now. And you can see that there's a couple of public teams. So what's happened here is a couple of people have created teams and they've made them public, which means that anybody in the department can actually come in and join their teams. And maybe that's intentional, maybe it's not. But I'm going to suggest that when you create a team, you're going to not make it public, you're going to make it private. Now, if I had a team code, if someone had already created a team and wanted to invite me to join, I could punch my code in there and I could join my join that team that way, whether I'm a student or a teacher. So when we're creating a team, there's 4 different teams that we can create. There's a class team, which as it sounds is for teachers and students. We've got professional learning community teams, which are exactly that. They've got a OneNote notebook inside that is dedicated to professional learning. We've got staff teams, which again have a dedicated OneNote notebook. And then we have what's called an other team. Now, an other team is basically a generic team. Outside of education, they only have one kind of team that they can create, and that's this one here. All right, so that one doesn't have assignment features, it doesn't have dedicated OneNote notebooks, etc. So keep that in mind, that you may find that later on you want to create some of these different kinds of teams. But in our example today, we're going to create a class team. So all I do is click on class team, and then I start by creating my team via a name. Now, my advice to you is I wouldn't call it Mr. Waller's class, or I wouldn't call it, 6G or something like that. The reason why is because next year, next term, you're going to want to, perhaps keep this team as a resource and as a reference, and you're going to want to create a brand new team. So you need to think about naming conventions when you come into your team. What we're suggesting is maybe put the year first, okay? So in this case, 2020, and then maybe your school code, right? So your school code might be 1, 2, 3, 4, probably not, but it might be. And then after that, maybe we'll think about the year level. So we might make year 6, and then it might be room 14 or whatever it is that code means something to you and your students, all right? You can put a description in there if you want. You can create a team from an existing team using that as a template, but in this case, we're not going to do that. I'm just going to leave that as that for now. And it's going to start to whip that team up for us. Now, here's where I can add my students and I can add other teachers, right? So for example, if I was looking for, and I'm just going to use someone from the department today that I know, I've got Cindy Dennison, so I can, and you can see here, everybody named Cindy from the department is in here, but I'm just going to add Cindy Dennison to my team. I'm adding her as a teacher, and I could add multiple teachers in there as well. Now, the problem is, if I was to add students now, those students will get an invitation to the team and I may not have set that team up. So my advice to you is don't add any students at this point, even though it invites you to, but I'll show you how to add students later on. Okay, and then once that I'm ready to go, I'd click into that, and then we'd keep moving in with this team. But what I want to do for you, actually, I will have to do that. What I'm going to do though is I've actually built a team already. and I'm going to jump into that team because I want to show you. It'll just be a little bit easier. I feel like I'm on a cooking show. Here's one I prepared earlier. So this one's called 2020 Sturt Street, Year 6A. Sorry to those from Sturt Street Community School that I've stolen your name. But instead of using the school code, we just use the school name. It's up to you how you want to do that. Okay. But here we see a team. Now, the first thing I want to do is I want to make this a little bit more fun. So when I click over here, I click on change the team picture. And you can see here, now I'll just let you know I am working from home, and if my dog starts to bark, welcome to the new reality, right? So I'm going to click one of these. So it's a primary team, but you can see there's a whole heap of different ones that I could use. So in this case, I'm actually going to pick these pencils, click update, and then that's going to set an icon or an avatar for my team, which is kind of nice. Now, we have a few different things happening over here at the side. Okay, now the first thing we see up here is what's called our activity feed. Just like when you're in Facebook, you know, usually on Facebook it sits around over here, but just like when you're in Facebook, these are your notifications. This is everything that is somehow relevant to me, and you can see that I've got the ones that are in bold, the ones I've never seen before, and these other ones are older. But when I come into my feed and I click on that, it's going to take me directly to that announcement or that notification inside whatever team. So this is right across all my teams. We've also got the ability to have chat. Now, what I might do is I might actually invite someone from the department to come off mute and talk to us about what's available for the students and the teachers around the chat space. Cindy or Trudy? Trudy, I might get you to come off mute. Would you tell us what's available to teachers and students in the chat space and the department teams?
That's disabled within Department for Education, so students cannot private chat and teachers cannot private chat with students. Okay, so are teachers able to chat with each other? Yes, they are, and department staff. Okay, so there you go. That's good to know. So teachers are able to chat with each other, but students are not able to chat with each other, and students are not able to chat directly with teachers. So what that means is if I wanted to have a chat, I would come up here to my chat function and I would look for someone that I was looking to chat with. In this case, it's another teacher. So we'll just wait for that to kick through. I'm sorry about this little bit of a lag here. I find that in the afternoon, my internet tends to slow down. But you can see there, I could start a brand new chat. And then I can start to invite people inside that chat, and it'll find them through the department's Active Directory, and it's really easy to find people and have private chats. Coming back into our teams though, and again, sorry about this lag, but as I said, this is what happens to my internet in the afternoon. So I can access all my teams. I've also got an assignments tab here, which we'll explore a little bit later, but this is all my assignments right across my different teams. I've got my calendar in here, so I've got the ability to schedule meetings. It'll connect directly to Outlook, so it'll show all my meetings for the day, not just my team's meetings. Okay, so that's what that looks like. Now, I'll just show you. Apologies, I'll just show you some of the other cool things that you can do. One of the things you can do, for example, when you come into a team, we have what are called channels. All right, so at the moment we've only got a general channel, and I will come back to that in a minute, but I just want to show you how easy it is to create more channels. So if I was going to add a channel, and I'm going to call this, because this is a class team, so I'm going to call this English, and I'm going to add that. And now what happens is we've got, just give that a moment, we've got a dedicated English channel. And because this is my class team, I'm also going to add another channel. And that channel, I'm going to call that Maths. And you can see where this is going, all right? So I could have HAS channels, I could have science channels. So this is in a primary context that I'm showing you here. Obviously for a secondary class, those channels might be unit topics or something like that, rather than specific subjects, because each classroom or each class that the student's going to be in might have its own dedicated team. All right, so when I come back into general though, every channel that I create
has the ability to post. So you can see here that I've started to talk to my students. All right, so this is not a chat. This is because it's not a private chat, this is a transparent chat that everyone can access. So there's no privacy here. So I can say, hi, class year 6A, and then I hit OK, and then that will appear there in my chat. Now, I've got some really cool stuff that I can do here. So if I click on format, for example, I have the ability to, just do the basic formatting that we're used to, bold, italic, underline, etc. But I can also throw in things like emojis. I can throw in stickers as well, and those stickers can be let me just give that a moment to load. Apologies again. The stickers can be personalized and customized, which is really nice. I have the ability also to start a video meeting from inside the channel, but we'll explore that a little bit later. I can also do what's called an announcement. And so an announcement will obviously be exactly as it says, an announcement, which will draw everyone's attention to that announcement, and that everyone will also get an activity notifications for that as well. But it's really cool because I can choose illustrations and make it kind of fun, right? So I might do something like throw the dragon in this one, and I might say meeting, no, let's change it to lesson review. Of course, it really doesn't matter. It could be anything. Lesson review tomorrow. All right, then add a subhead, throw some notifications in there, and I can say, please check your diary. And then I could put a date or something like that in there. And then when I click send, now that lives inside the chat or the post area for everybody to see. The other thing that I've got in here is I've got files. So when I click on files, I now have the ability to store files that I want everyone to have access to inside of my team and inside of my class. All right, now we've got class materials is a folder that's already created. That's a read only for students, but full read and write access for teachers. But I could create from inside here, I could create new folders. But I can also start new Word documents, Excel documents, etc., all from inside there. So pretty cool in terms of that. The other thing that we've got is we've got what's called a class notebook. Now we will have a dedicated workshop tomorrow that we will focus on class notebook, and we'll go into a lot more detail around class notebook and what it can do for you. But I will just quickly give you a very brief overview, and you'll have to forgive me while this loads. Normally, if your internet's great, this will load much faster than mine is today. But just forgive me while it does this. There we go. Okay, so when I click on that little button there, that's going to open my navigation pane. And you can see I've got a content library, a collaboration space, and then I've got my students as well. So as a teacher, I've got a collaboration space where my students can come and work together, and I can differentiate and set permissions and lock students in and out of spaces in there so they can work together, sometimes see each other, sometimes not. I've got a content library. My content library is where I would, as a teacher, leave all my my learning materials and my content, etc. So you can see I've created some sections in there already for my students. Obviously, if this was a high school or a secondary context, then these might be again unit topics, and this could reflect whatever I've created over here in the channels. And then I've got my students. So I've got Cindy and Trudy. They are my pretend students today, and they have sections that are reflecting the content area. So I can see Cindy and Trudy, but they can't see each other, right? So as a teacher, I can see everything, but Trudy and Cindy, they would just see themselves, the content library and the collaboration space, and that's all they'd see. And there's a whole lot that we're going to explore tomorrow that, if you tune in for the next webinar, we're going to take you through a whole lot more of that. Okay, so I've created those two channels, all right, but when I create a channel, I have the ability to add tabs, okay? So when I click here, add a tab, and this happens in the general channel too, but I just want to show it to you inside here. So inside this channel, I have the ability to link in existing apps like Stream, PowerPoint, SharePoint, etc. These are all the Microsoft ones, but I can also, as I mentioned before, bring in all these third-party apps as well. Some of these will need a subscription, some of these won't, but the apps are there that if you have your favorite things that you're using in your classroom, you can bring those inside of Teams as well. Now, I do want to show you that inside those apps, we have one called Insights. And the Insights app, which is easy to find, if you can't find it at your start page, what you need to do, just let that load. You just need to search for it in here. I've already loaded it in, which is why it's easy to find for me. But if you are looking for apps, you just type them in there. But what the Insights app does is it actually brings you some analytics data on your students, okay? And this is actually due for an update very, very soon. So watch this space. This will be able to tell you some really good information. So people are asking before about attendance and other kinds of things. So you can keep an eye on that in there as well. So, but we can add those tabs to any of our channels, not just the general channel. All right. Now, another thing I want to share with you is the ability in the tabs to actually add anything that is a website. So if you have a website that you use, whether it's an LMS, a learning management system, or anything that you tend to use a lot, you can actually put it as a tab across the top, making it easy for the students to find. Now, I want to show you, I've got here, this is Canvas. So Canvas is an LMS, a learning management system, which your school may use, may not, doesn't matter. But whatever you happen to use, so let's just put this here as LMS, and then we click we paste that in there like that, and then we hit save. And now what happens is, you'll notice in a moment that that website now becomes a tab inside our Teams environment. Now again, as I told you before, this internet's killing me, it's so slow. But there we go. Okay, so what will happen in a moment is that will actually load as the full website, looking just like this, but happening inside Teams. Okay, the other thing that we can do is we can add a YouTube clip, for example. So I'm going to go over to my channel. I'm going to create a channel called Chinese, because maybe that's one of my, actually, no, I'll just take you into English and I'll show you adding an adjectives page. So I've got this from the ABC website. So if you're looking for something on adjectives, this is a good one to use. So what I do is I come in here, I add the tab as a website, just like I did for that that Canvas page then. And this is going to be adjectives activities, and then I just paste the link, excuse me, in there. And then we just give it a moment. And again, you're going to find this to be a much quicker experience than I am at the moment. But we just wait for that to load. And there you go. So you can see that your websites will actually load inside. So anything that you've got that has a web portal, whether that's an activities page or your LMS or anything like that, can all be inside there. All right, very good. Now the assignment experience. We're going to have a talk through a little bit later, but assignments also live inside here. Now, apologies. Now I'm going to talk to that assignment features. So I'm going to jump out of that. I'm going to come back into my general channel. And you can see here that I've actually already set up an assignment. Okay, so this is one on Aboriginal culture for this class. So this might actually be in their HAS channel if I was to build that channel out. But I'm going to click on assignments and I want to show you what it looks like. So when I build an assignment inside Teams, it's really quite straightforward. So when I click on create, the first thing I could do is I could use Microsoft Forms to make a self-marking assessment, short answer, long answer. I could make it true or false, multiple choice, one answer, multiple choice, multiple answers, short answer, long answer, etc. But I'm not going to take you through that today, but I will let you know that it's there and it's quite amazing. So get in and have a bit of a play. Instead, what I want to show you is I want to show you the assignments feature. and we're going to create a new assignment. Okay, so I just want to show you here what it looks like and how we could do it. So for example, we're in the general channel, but I can decide where I want to assign this. But I'm going to make a, let's make this adjectives, excuse me, adjectives assignment number 1, and then I get to choose a category. All right, so in this case, this is going to be an English one, so I'm going to create a new category. So I could tag it however I want it. It doesn't have to be tagged by subject. You can tag it however you want to. You might tag it by class, whatever. You can make any tags you want. And then you have your instructions. So here's where I would put in the instructions. So, you know, look at the worksheet, etc. Then I can add resources. And those instructions can be quite detailed, obviously. So I can add an existing document from my own personal OneDrive. I can add a page directly from my class notebook. I can throw in a link from anywhere on the internet, and I can also create templates for them to work in. So maybe a Word document or a PowerPoint presentation or Excel spreadsheet that I want the students to actually build from, or I can even upload something from my device. Okay, won't do that now, but I'm going to show you what it looks like in a minute. Now I can assign points. I can build a rubric as well. Okay, so I can bring in an existing rubric, or I can create a new rubric. And as you can see, if you know anything about rubrics, which I'm sure you do, I can set my criteria and my descriptors across the top. Then I can set my criteria descriptions down the side here, and I can set those inside just like I would a rubric, and I can save that and use that for other assignments if that's what I want to do. I can assign this to the entire team, or I can assign it to other teams that I work with across my classes. I can set it to all students, or I can individually differentiate down to individual students or groups of students as well. I set a due date, I set a time that it's due, and I can decide whether I want it to be able to be handed in late or not. Now, what that looks like, and I want to show you one again doing my MasterChef specialty. I don't watch MasterChef, but I'm sure they talk about ones they prepared earlier. Tell me that they don't. But if I want to view this assignment here, so here's one I've already built. So the students can access this already. And this is an Aboriginal culture assignment that I've made around Adam Goods. Okay, so you can see I've already tagged it. What the students see is this. So they get instructions, watch the Adam Goods video, they get reference materials, and they also get this template. If I had built a rubric, they would see the rubric as well. And you can see here there's no points assigned, but I could go in and change that, you know, 20 points, 10 points, 100 points, whatever I want it to be. So if I edit the assignment as a teacher, this is where I can add those as well. So for example, let's make this now, let's make it 30 points and update that. And then the students will get a notification that that's been updated. Now, what happens is now I can look at my students and see who's done what. So I've only got 2 students in this class. Hopefully I'd have a few more. In this case, these guys have not handed it in, but I can go in and have a look at the work they have done so far, right? So I can go in and look at Cindy's work, for example. So if she'd done work inside here, I could edit that and give her feedback directly onto the document, or I could give her feedback in here. If she'd handed it in, I could give her a score and I can return it, or I can just save it so that my assessment and my feedback can be sort of ongoing for her as well. She can then submit that assignment to me, and then I can give her more feedback and hand it back to her. She can submit that again and again. We can have what we call a feedback loop for her in there. So that's what our assignments basically look like. So let's move on. So now we're thinking about what we're going to do during our online lesson, and we've only got, goodness me, we've only got 15 minutes left. I've been going a bit slow, so forgive me, but I'm going to take you through this really, really fast. So we're going to present the content to the students, we're going to record our session, and we're going to manage our conversations and our questions. So having a look here, this is what your video is going to look like when your students come in. You're going to see 4 students at a time, the last 4 that have spoken. If you want to know when will I be able to see all my students at once, that is currently being worked on. So please watch out for that, that announcement coming soon. But you can have 250 students with video on at once. So you can have a Teams meeting, a class with 250 kids all together. All right, so let me take you in and show you how we would set a meeting. So we'll go back into in this case, we're going to go into the maths channel. Let's create a maths lesson. All right, so this is my grade 6. What I do is I come over here to calendar, click on calendar, and then this opens up. Now you can see this is the webinar that we're actually in at the moment, right? So I'm going to create a new meeting for this class. All I do is click new meeting. If I was to click meet now, it would open a Teams meeting in that channel then and there. So let's call this, let's make this an integers lesson. Actually, let's call it maths integers. Maths integers. I could invite individuals if I wanted to, but I want to show you a better way to do this. Let's schedule this meeting for, not that we would, but let's schedule it for 2:30, and it's only a half hour face-to-face, but that doesn't mean the whole lesson's going to go for that long. It could go longer. And then we want to add a channel. So when I click on this, I have to find my team. So my team is 2020 Sturt Street. I'm going to put that in the maths channel. Okay, and then I'm going to click send. Now what's going to happen is when we go back into the maths channel, I'm going to come back into my team by clicking on the Teams icon here. We see now that that meeting is now scheduled for 2:30, right? Now what happens is we can jump into that meeting right now. So hopefully, Trudy, if you're listening, I'm going to invite you into that. So we're in the maths channel and we're in the maths integers lesson. So I click on that. Even though it's scheduled for that time, we can jump in at any time. And then we come up here and we click join. Okay, now in this case, I'm actually going to turn my video and my audio off because I'm already using video and audio through Teams to speak to you guys. I don't want to confuse my computer, but you could turn that on like that. Okay, and then I click join now. All right, now what happens is as students begin to join this, so if Trudy actually does join, here she comes, she's coming in now, and she may want to turn her video on, but I would see 4 of my students. In this case, it's only 1, and there's Trudy. Wave hi, Trudy. So there's Trudy. Now, the thing I want to point out to you is you see over here this little icon here, show participants. This is where I can see, this is kind of my attendance. I'm sorry it's not automated, but I could take a look and see who's currently in this meeting. There's 2 kids and there's Trudy, for example. Now, what I can do for Trudy is I can click on this and I can mute her. All right, so she can't speak anymore. The other thing that I can do is I can make her an attendee. Now that's what we want to do. We want to make sure that she's not coming in as a presenter, because if she comes in as a presenter, she actually has a lot of control over the meeting. So we just want to make sure that all our kids, all our students are taken down to attendee level. All right, so you can turn your camera off now if you want, Trudy, so that we don't have to or so that you don't feel you're being seen by 300 something teachers. And she's actually left the chat altogether. Well, there you go. So I can turn on my video on and off, and my audio on and off inside. I can also share my screen. All right, so I might have content, whether that's a PowerPoint presentation, whether it's just showing people a website, my screen, etc. That can all happen inside here through that share function as well. All right, so I can continue the video while also sharing content. The other thing I can do by clicking on here with the more actions is I can start the video recording. So by starting the video recording, that is now being recorded, everything that's being said from this point forward and everything that's being, it comes onto the screen, etc. I do want to show you as well that you can show your device settings. Okay, so if you're finding you're having trouble with sound and with microphone, that's all done through there as well, and also your camera. Okay, so keep that in mind. So there you go. The other thing we can do is, depending on whether you're having a chat with teachers or whether you're having a chat with students, you'll have to get in and see what's available to you, but we can also have a real-time chat going on. Now, the other thing I want to do now is I want to actually stop this recording. And I want to show you what happens when I stop that recording. And I jump out of this chat, jump out of this video meeting. Okay, so that was our maths integers meeting. It's all finished. The kids were able to ask questions, were able to talk, share screens. And then at the end of that, what happens is the recording is stopped and the meeting recording is now being saved into Microsoft Stream, which is our video chat platform, sorry, our video recording platform. However, a version of that recording or a link to that recording will actually sit inside the channel. So what that means is, as a teacher or even as a student, I can go back and access the recording. Maybe I was away, maybe I want to use it for review for a test, etc. That all sits inside there. Okay, so looking at this, after our lesson, we want to access the lesson recording, which I just shared with you a moment ago how to do that. We want to view the responses to the conversations and we want to continue to chat and collaborate on the documents and learning materials. So in terms of the cloud recordings, I just want to make sure that you understand that Microsoft Teams saves our recordings to Microsoft Stream, and Microsoft Stream is an Office 365 app, so we're in the same platform, so it's all integrated. So it'll automatically upload to the channel which we saw, but look at this, it will create closed captions for that video. So anything that was spoken, children can turn on the captions and they can get a transcript as well. Okay, so it's totally included in your subscription as department staff, so it's free to you. There are 500,000 total videos that you can upload into Stream, which is a lot of video, but each video can be 50 gigabyte, right? So you think about how big those videos can be. Pretty awesome. All right, so we've seen the video in the chat. And that's where that all lives. So remembering again, we'll come back and see if that video is actually, no, it's still saving. Pretty soon that'll appear as a little thumbnail and we can click in and start to watch that video. Okay, now the other thing I want to share with you really quickly, another tab that lives up here is the grades tab. So when we click on the grades tab, this is our gradebook. And what we actually see is this. So this is again one that I've cooked up earlier, but you can see I've got all my students down here and I've got all their assignments. So I've got a cumulative grade total for all the assignments that they've done with me, and I can go and look at their assignments, individual assignments, or as I said, look at the cumulative one as well. But I can also drill down. So if I was to click on Juan there, I can also drill down to a student level and be looking at my student work in here. So you can see he's had 3 late assignments. He's got a couple that are missing. This may be time for me to have a bit of a chat with Juan. Okay, so what I'm going to ask you to do is just to remember to download Teams, the app. And to download Teams, the app, onto your machine, what we do is when we click on when we're inside Teams in the web version, we click on here on our little icon up here in the top, and then we can download the desktop app or even download the mobile app. All right, so that's where we go to get Teams for our machine. Next steps. Okay, so in terms of the remote learning information that we made available to or that I told you about before, aka.ms/remote learning 365. Please jump in and have a look at that. We've got our Teams teacher guide. So if you want to have a look through some learning around how to use Teams directly for you as a teacher, aka.ms/Teams teacher guides. And then online courses for teachers are available at education.microsoft.com. That's education.microsoft.com. Those are the online courses. South Australian teachers, these courses are recognised by the TRB, which means that these will count as PD hours, and you can get a transcript printed off from the website, and you can be able to demonstrate that to everybody that you need to demonstrate that to. All right, so I'm looking at time. I will draw your attention again to this website here, aka.ms/Microsoft Remote Learning. You can find me on Twitter, you can find me on LinkedIn, and you can find me on Facebook. But what I might do now is I might jump over back to our department staff and ask them if there are any burning questions for our last 6 minutes.
Yes, there are a couple, a few that you may cover off in future sessions, but with video chat, currently only 4 people are visible. Is this something that can be changed?
It's something that's being worked on at the moment, as I said before. So yes, at the moment you can only see the 4, but watch this space. It's going to be announced at some point in the near future. You'll be able to see a lot more of your students at once.
Okay. Does Teams offer the same experience in terms of its functionality in the app and web-based, or is one recommended over the other?
They're almost identical, but you will get more features and a little bit of more quickness. Like you saw today that I was showing through the web version, my internet was slow, so it was, it was a little bit slow to load. But yeah, they're very similar, but you'll get a better experience through the app.
Quick one just about OneNote, which will probably move to a future session, but can existing class notebooks be linked to a team?
The answer to that is yes and no. So if you want to have the full integration of your existing class notebook to the team, then the answer is no. You need to create a new class notebook when you create the team, and then you can copy your material over and close the old one down. And what I mean by integration is just being able to use the assignments features, being able to add students to the team and automatically have them added to the class notebook. Then you do need to create a new one, copy that material over. If you wanted to just add a OneNote link, that is that the OneNote notebook will show inside of Teams, but there's no direct integration. You can do that, but you'll still need to set permissions, etc., all outside of Teams. So our advice to you is to create a new team, create the class notebook, copy the material over, and then close your old one down. It's not as hard as it sounds. If you go into your favorite search engine and type in use existing class notebook with Teams or something like that, you'll get some really good support documentation to walk you through how to do that.
Thanks, Troy. And just a really quick one around quizzes. If a quiz is set up, can it be printed for those students that aren't online?
You can print a quiz, just like you can print, anything from screen grabs and things like that. There is a possibility to print, but please remember that it's really not designed for that. Where what Microsoft is really pushing towards is a paperless existence. So you're going to have obviously a much better experience, remembering that the student can still open that form through their phone, through their iPad, through a lot of other devices, even though they may not necessarily have access to a desktop machine.
Thanks, Troy. We're going to send some questions through to you externally and publish the answers to those as well.
Okay, great. So we've got about 2 minutes left. I guess, one more thing is just please notice that's me on Twitter, that's me on LinkedIn, and that's me on Facebook. Please feel free to add me. These are dedicated work-related accounts, so it's not about me showing you pictures of my kids or funny memes, but at the same time, it just helps. It gives you a direct connection to us, and it also helps because I find a lot of the, the feature updates and the latest greatest things that are going on, and I publish that onto my page. And so if you set the permissions, it'll turn up in your feed as well. So guys, that's all from me, and thanks very much for having me.
Hi everyone, thanks for joining us for today's Microsoft Remote Learning webinar. Big thank you to Troy Waller for his presentation. Please join us tomorrow for Discover O365 in Teams, Microsoft Teams meeting. Don't forget we're making all of these webinars available through EDIT. Cheers.
Thank you. Thank you.